Hey everybody, welcome back. Today let's talk about Mage Cannoneer. Mage Cannoneer is one of the new DLC classes that came out in Wave 4 of the DLC, and it has some unique aspects to it that make it different from every other class in the game. First off, its hit rate and damage formula are different. The hit rate is determined by strength plus dex plus build plus 1/2 luck and the weapon hit rate. And its damage is solely determined by dex instead of strength. Now let's talk about some of the units you might want to use on Mage Cannoneer. Mage Cannoneer can be unlocked as soon as Chapter 6. So early on in the game, if you wanted to get a Mage Cannoneer early, one of your best options might be Boucheron. You could get Boucheron up to level 10 and then class change him into Mage Cannoneer. You could use Micaiah on him to power level him early. You could also unlock Veronica starting in Chapter 6. So you could get started on Mage Cannoneer with Boucheron if you wanted. My suggestion would be to wait till Chapter 11 and use Kagetsu on Mage Cannoneer. He's got a passive that helps with hit rate, which is really important on Mage Cannoneer. And he just has more well-rounded growths, I'll say. Other good options would be Panette in Chapter 13. She's got really good growths for Mage Cannoneer. And Rosado in Chapter 16. He's got pretty good Mage Cannoneer growths, and he also has a passive that helps with your hit rate on male enemies. Now let's get into starting builds. I would suggest starting out with Veronica. You're not going to have the SP for all of the expensive skills that you're going to want to use on Mage Cannoneer. So starting out on Veronica allows you to gain Reprisal for free. You don't have to buy Reprisal for like 5,000 SP or whatever it costs. And you can use the Enchanter to help get a holdout effect, like a one-time use holdout effect when you use the meal. So you can lower your HP to 1 using that. She also gives luck, so if you wanted to use Divine Pulse on Mage Cannoneer, you could use Divine Pulse to help fix your hit rate and then use the Enchanter to get the holdout effect one time. Veronica has Contract, which is one of the skills that you might want to use on your Mage Cannoneer. It's basically like a dance that you can't move after you've been danced. You can still attack. So if you want to use Contract, there's a couple other options you can use instead of Veronica starting out. One of them I would say is Lyn. If you use your illusory doubles, then you can get up to 4 chain attacks on every attack that you do after that. And the chain attack hit rate is not determined by your actual hit rate. So even if you have like a 20 or 30% hit rate attacking somebody from the maximum range, you'll still have the 80% hit rate on each of your chain attacks. She also gives Dex, which is what determines your damage. So Lyn could be pretty good for a Mage Cannoneer. You can use Reposition to move one of the Lyn doubles after you make them, so you can dance your Mage Cannoneer right away. And my third starting build I would suggest would be to use Corrin. One of the weapons that the Mage Cannoneer gets is Venom Shot. Hitting an enemy with Venom Shot applies 3 stacks of poison on target's hit. 3 stacks of poison means they take an extra 5 damage from every attack. And Corrin also has Draconic Hex, which is a very powerful debuff, gives -4 to every one of their stats, and it just helps set up kills for some of your weaker units to get them leveled up. Dreadful Aura can also be used to secure units, keep them in place, and then you can use Let's Fly to finish them off. So Corrin's really strong. Some of the other emblems you might want to try out, I think Sigurd's pretty interesting. He gives Canter for free, and he gives Build and Dex. You can use Momentum to get a little bit of extra damage on each of your shots. And with Canter, you can effectively outrange every unit in the game. So you already have 8 range, which means that normal units, not cavalry, but just standard units that have 5 range, or 5 movement and then 2, like either 1 or 2 range with a ranged weapon, you can outrange those. You can also outrange the Thunder Mages. So like usually, because at standard you outrange normal units, but without Canter you don't outrange units with Thunder or units that are cavalry and have a ranged weapon. Like if a cavalry unit had like a spear or a javelin, something like that. You also don't outrange one specific boss, Zephia. She has Thoron, so she has 6 move and then 3 range. So with Sigurd, you have 8 range, and then you can get Canter for an extra 2 movement after you attack, so you can effectively outrange every unit in the game with Canter and your 8 range. Another interesting option would be Micaiah. You'd basically only be using Micaiah for either power leveling, because the armored effect gives you a ton of XP, or the setting your unit to 1 HP for extra reprisal damage. But with Sigurd, Micaiah, and like all the other starting units at the beginning, you lose them after chapter 10, and you don't get them back until much later. Like, you don't get Sigurd back until after chapter 17, and you don't get Micaiah back until after chapter 19. You could use Roy, but like same thing, you don't get Roy back until after chapter 19. Roy's probably the strongest endgame unit for Mage Cannon. He gives Holdout for free, and he gives Rise Above, which is going to increase all of your stats by 5 levels, which is a very powerful effect. Definitely one of the strongest endgame emblems to use. Lucina is another interesting option. She gives Dex, which increases your damage, and she also makes your unit a backup unit and grants them Dual Assist. So Dual Assist is going to make you do chain attacks on a ton of enemies. So Lucina is pretty interesting. Erica similarly gives Dex, which increases your damage, and she also basically gives you a free Lunar Brace / Bravery, whichever one you want to use. So you can get a little bit of extra damage on each attack, a little bit of extra guaranteed damage on each attack. And you get Erica after chapter 16, so you don't get her till like kind of like the later, like the mid game. But there's some emblems that you can, so all the DLC emblems you can get after chapter 6, and you don't lose them throughout the entire game. So a couple of the DLC emblems that you might want to use are Edelgard. Edelgard's going to give you dexterity and strength for increased hit and damage. She also has Weapon Sync that you get for free, which is just going to give you extra free damage when you're engaged. She also has Flame Gambit, so you can Flame Gambit and then Flame Gambit them from 8 tiles away. So then they take some extra damage and they can't move as far. One other option would be Crom. He gives strength and dex, and he kind of has like a Lucina effect, or like a Lyn effect, where you get like a free chain attack when you attack with Crom. From the other half, you can get a free chain attack. So Crom's a pretty good option. He gives you dex and strength, which is kind of what you need. So now that we've talked about some of the emblems you can use, let's talk about some of the skills that work really well on this class. So starting out, you're not going to have as much SP. So one of the skills you might want to try out is Divine Pulse. Divine Pulse only costs 250 SP, and it's going to, whenever you miss, there's a chance that's equal to 30% plus your luck stat that it turns a miss into a hit. So depending on your luck stat, this could be like 40 to 50% starting out. It's a great skill to start out with on Mage Cannon, because usually once you start in Mage Cannon, you have unreliable hit rates. So I think Divine Pulse is one of the best starting skills for Mage Cannon. I would also maybe suggest Star Spear, especially early on. This is just going to give you some extra stats for the end game. And another option that might be really good for you is SP Conversion. SP Conversion, a lot of the end game skills you're going to want to run on Mage Cannon have a ton of SP costs. Like Reprisal costs 5,000 SP, which is a pretty heavy investment. Running SP Conversion for some of the mid game stages, some of the early game stages, is going to allow you to get a lot of more SP in the end game. Now let's get into some of the end game skills. The first one we'll talk about is Reprisal. Reprisal basically allows you to boost your attack by half of your HP stat, which is a really powerful effect, and it really allows you to secure some kills that you normally wouldn't be able to. But one of the things that Reprisal really needs is kind of a safe way to get to low HP. One of the safest ways to get to low HP is going to be holdout. You can only use the enchanter effect once, so running holdout will really give you a lot more safe time at low HP. Draconic Hex, it's a powerful debuff. If you're not running the Corrin Engage Ring, Draconic Hex is a great option to help debuff enemies, set up kills for your other units. Lunar Brace, if you're not running the Erica Engage Ring, Lunar Brace is one of the strongest damage boosting effects for physical attacks. So Lunar Brace is a great option. If you want to just go for raw stats, Dex plus 5 or Strength and Dex plus 5 are both going to increase your damage by 5. And Strength and Dex plus 5 is very expensive, which is why I just put Dex plus 5 if you want to just do Dex plus 5. Dexterity is much more important for the class than Strength, so you could just go for the Dex plus 5. Hit plus 30 is an interesting option. I'd do Divine Pulse over taking Hit plus 10, but Hit plus 30 is probably better and more consistent than Divine Pulse Plus. Because Divine Pulse Plus only costs like 500 SP total, and Hit plus 30 is far more expensive than that, but you're going to very consistently be able to just have almost perfect hit rates. With Divine Pulse Plus, you're probably hitting like 70% or 80%, it's like somewhere within the 70 to 80% range of turning a miss into a hit, which is almost the same as like your like lowest hit rates you're going to have on Hit plus 30. So it really comes down to preference. I think you'll probably be fine with just Divine Pulse, in my opinion. I'd go for Divine Pulse over any of the hit rate boosting ones, but that's just my opinion. You can also check your hit rates that you're seeing, and Hit plus 30 might be a good option. And the final skill I'll talk about is Canter. So if you're not running Sigurd, Canter can allow you to outrange every enemy in the game, which is very interesting. So like if you want to just pop them, Canter also has a really nice effect of allowing you, because the class only has 4 base movement speed, you could use boots to raise that to 5, just to kind of put you on the same movement as every other unit in the game, like all your standard units. But Canter, after you attack, you can move an extra 2 squares, so it can also just help you move around. So I think Canter is really strong. That's it for all the builds and skills I thought might be fun or useful. If you have any builds that you've been enjoying on the Mage Cannoneer, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.